Union Jack just seems to be some edgy British Captain America, and that's really all I can assume based on his appearance, because I don't know a lick about this guy otherwise. He's not really a literal British Captain America, because that's already taken. Union Jack kind of just looks more so a spy. Union Jack here wields 2 pistols and has a few different abilities relating to his spying behavior. Firstly, he has agility, because every non-powered hero or villain seems to need it if they want to survive more than 2 seconds in the superhero business. His second ability is grapple, because spies have grappling hooks, apparently. And finally, Union Jack possesses the explosive ability. Those 3 abilities, as well as the dual pistols, are what makes Union Jack his old British self. But other than that, there really isn't much to say about the guy. LORELEI is an interesting case in this game. So, turns out she was in the MCU before, depending on what you consider to be canon. If you don't recall what I consider canon, the only thing that really matters right now is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Seasons 1 and 2 are canon in my mind. And LORELEI actually showed up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the first season, meaning that LORELEI was actually a part of the MCU before this game came out. It was only for 2 episodes in Season 1, but the fact that she is there means she is canon, of course, if you consider Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to be canon. However, she was included in the base game roster for LEGO Avengers, and this version of her in the game is her comic variant and not the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. version. So yeah, a weird situation to be sure. In any case, LORELEI is an Asgardian who specializes in mind control and manipulation by means of being hot, I guess. That's translated into this game with the abilities of mind control and telekinesis. And honestly, I'd expect nothing less. Also, agility was thrown in there, because of course it was. They need to spice it up a little bit. Possibly one of the more controversial figures in the MCU. It's not that people don't like Coulson. He's actually pretty hard to dislike. It's just that he's the star of a show that's so widely debated as to its canonicity. Like, okay, they brought him back to life, even though he served as the motivation for the Avengers, actually coming together to defeat Loki in the first Avengers movie. And then proceeded to have a 7-season show with this guy at the helm. He switched between director and agent like the flick of the wrist throughout the course of the show. Clark Gregg, the guy who plays Coulson, actually came out and did voice lines for Coulson for this game, which is rare for MCU stars to do.
Sorry to interrupt your little trip across the city, but the police are on their way to a crime in progress near you. Maybe you can beat them to it.
Usually they just get impersonators like they did with most of the characters in LEGO Incredibles. Coulson was the guy who informed you of these little missions in Manhattan, which involve taking down crooks who steal someone's bag, or someone's bank truck, one of the two. Also, the mission Coulson gave in Manhattan was such a pain. Basically, he flew around Lola, his red flying car, and you had to defend it from Ultron sentries. If it gets too damaged, you actually have to start the whole mission over. It's rare that you actually fail a mission in LEGO games. I don't even think it's a possibility. But I think this mission is the only one you could fail in LEGO Avengers. I usually wouldn't mind, but the mission is so long and it's hard to fight these Ultron sentries mid-air. It's just a hassle. Agent Coulson in this game, though, has 3 abilities, and they are shield, technology, and explosive. The stuff you'd expect from a shield agent. Now this kind of confuses me. Like in Captain America the Winter Soldier, she was bedridden. Yet here she is sometime after the events of Age of Ultron, traveling all around Manhattan, giving you mementos about her youth. Regardless of the nonsensicality, her missions were pretty cool. Basically, you talk to this old Agent Carter, and the game gets this black and white filter, and you play a mission with the young Agent Carter. The whole premise is that Agent Carter tells you about one of her missions, and you're transported to the scene of the crime that she's reminiscing about. It's cool at first, but there's 10 whole missions that are like this, and they get to be really repetitive. For most of them, you just walk around and beat up guys. But then again, most side missions in general in this game are like that. Also, you must do all of these missions in a specific order. One doesn't unlock until you do the one before. That kind of thing. Also, I'll save Agent Carter's ability for the next segment for her much cooler variant. Now here's an Agent Carter that makes sense. Well, not really, since Peggy Carter was young back in the 40s and 50s, so it doesn't make sense that she's young here, but in terms of her abilities, she should definitely be young to make sense. Her 3 abilities are Shield, Scan, and Agility. As I said, the retired Agent Carter, the old one, has the same abilities, which is dumb. That old woman should not be able to swing around poles, but if she can, she has a lot of explaining to do to Steve for appearing to be, almost dead in the Winter Soldier and then, straight up dying in Civil War. Also, another thing I want to note is that in the anger management level, in the part where the Avengers experience like these nightmares under Scarlet Witch's spell, the game adapts the part where Steve has a dance with Peggy like they promised, and then everyone magically becomes dead as part of the nightmare. Well, in the game, Peggy shows up in this variant as opposed to, like in a dress like she's supposed to be wearing, which is kind of funny. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of this variant. I love the hat, I love everything, the suit, everything, but it's not what she's supposed to be wearing in the scene of question. Also, in that level, the scene flashes to all the NPCs on the ground writhing in pain with a weirdly content smile, which is hilarious in and of itself. But the movie has the room just cleared with no people in it, with Steve in there by himself. I think with the people on the ground, writhing in pain, I think they're trying to say like, oh, these people are dead because they're old and dead now. But that's not even what the movie showed. So I don't know why they're trying to hint at this, kind of really malicious undertone. But whatever, I don't care that much. Overall, Agent Carter just causes a ton of confusion in this game, no matter which variant she appears in. Here's one of Iron Man's pretty lame villains. Now don't get me wrong, I love Iron Man, but he's much more suited as a member of the Avengers than a superhero on his own. The reason I say that is his villains. They're all either just dudes in Iron Man-like suits or just complete weirdos. I mean, have you seen the 1991 cartoon?
Aerospace protocols interlock with mainframe and evaluate options. Robot sentinels arm and patrol at once. No intruder shall pass alive.
Our agreement has been fulfilled.
Then you're free to go, MODOK.
I will tell the Mandarin that you used me, that I was forced to cooperate against my will.
Now, the first Iron Man movie was great, one of my favorite MCU movies, but I can't say the same for his sequels. But back to the character at hand. This is Justin Hammer, who appeared in Iron Man 2 and was responsible for that army of robots that Iron Man and War Machine fought at the end of the movie. Justin Hammer, on his own though, is just a guy. He has 3 abilities and they all relate to him being some sort of technological genius or something. His 3 abilities are Scan, Technology, and Repair. I think Repair is new to the series, so it may be unfamiliar. Basically, they just fix objects that glow blue. This ability is reserved for those who are good with machines and the like. HELLCAT was actually in the MCU if you consider the Netflix shows to be canon. As for me, I do consider the first season of Jessica Jones canon, and HELLCAT here was in the show, even though she wasn't necessarily HELLCAT. But that being said, I'm putting HELLCAT on the MCU edition list, just so we can get that out of the way. But if you've seen Jessica Jones, you'll know her as Trish Walker, Jessica Jones' childhood friend who is also famous. Later on in the show, she gains cat-like reflexes and hence HELLCAT. There you go. Obviously, the MCU shows are not adapted into this game since they are pretty mature for the target demographic of this game. So HELLCAT and all other characters from the Netflix shows that are in this game are based on their comic book counterpart as opposed to their Netflix counterpart. HELLCAT in this game has all the stuff you'd expect. HELLCAT has Dig, Agility, and Cracked Wall as her abilities. All of those are things cats do, and I suppose the Hell part of her name is what gives her the Cracked Wall ability, I guess. HELLCAT, along with a few other characters, do this strange thing when targeting something. HELLCAT doesn't have a projectile, so she really shouldn't be able to target. Instead of a projectile, if you target something, time seems to slow down and HELLCAT rushes to the thing that's targeted and breaks it, leaving an after image of herself. It's really weird and I have no idea why this is a thing, but HELLCAT, along with a few other characters, can do this. Moon Knight is a superhero that would have been best suited for the mature tone of the Marvel Netflix shows, yet his show is actually coming to Disney Plus soon. Given the darker nature of Moon Knight, I'm worried it's going to be like watered down to suit a bigger audience. But that being said, even though the Moon Knight show is not out at the time of this video, I'm preemptively adding Moon Knight to the MCU edition list since I'm going over him now, and I know he's getting an entire show set in the MCU pretty soon. So, despite my skepticism though, Moon Knight is probably one of the shows I'm most excited for on Disney Plus as a whole, let alone just the Marvel stuff. In this game, you unlock him as a quest in Manhattan where you have to find his cat. Moon Knight surprisingly has a lackluster moveset, seeing as he has a pretty big following relative to other superheroes in his own tier. He has grapple, agility, and glide. Glide is new, but it doesn't do much. From a high up place, Moon Knight can glide in the air. It's not needed for puzzles. It's like the Civil War Scarlet, which is hover, but a little bit better. But then again, any guy with flight is preferable for air travel. This is a very curious case regarding the MCU edition list. Now, if you've kept up with the Marvel shows on Disney Plus, you'd know that Captain Britain was featured in the What If series. However, that Captain Britain looks nothing like the one in this game, seeing as the one in What If is Peggy Carter, not just any Brit. Also, technically, the Peggy Carter Captain Britain isn't in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but rather some other universe. My verdict is... Oh, this is tough. Screw it. Put Captain Britain on the list, especially since after Peggy's Captain Britain, I doubt they're going to bring in this guy as a Captain Britain, since it would just cause confusion. Okay, I'm done with the Peggy Carter Captain Britain. Let's focus on the Captain Britain in this game. This Captain Britain was a foe of Captain America, presumably because of a grudge from losing the Revolutionary War to a couple of Yanks. His moveset is nothing like the Peggy version. He can fly with the British flag magically streaming behind him and has a staff that can be used to deflect beams. Oh, and also he has agility. Cloud9's mission to unlock her is probably the second most annoying quest in the game. The first was the Agent Coulson Lola mission I talked about earlier on in this part, but for Cloud9, these clouds appear over the sky between these skyscrapers and you must jump on them to rescue civilians. You can't use flight, and these clouds are spaced far enough away for you to need to double jump. And depending on the character, double jumps may cause you to do a roll that could launch you off the cloud if you're not careful. If you fall, you have to start the course all over again, and there are 3 separate courses that you need to complete. Usually, I'm good with platforming, but there's this forced perspective that makes things more difficult. Once you finally finish the 3 cloud parkour courses, is Cloud9 worth it? I mean, she's cool, but not a character I play repeatedly. Cloud9 has the power to create clouds, if you can believe that. But in this game, she creates clouds to help her fly, which is ironic considering you couldn't even use flight in the mission you unlock her in. Her other interesting ability is stealth, in which she shrouds herself with clouds. Cloud9's last ability is agility, but as I said, we've seen it so much that it's just not interesting anymore. I mean, well, was it ever interesting?